exploring the dangerous resurgence of fascist tactics today in American politics.
I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God.
So this is just a quick little follow-up from my previous video I posted today. If you don't know it, go find it. But anyway, so violence in the name of politics, it's still fascism. A lot of people are confused by the labels. Some groups call themselves anti-fascist or Antifa, as if that excuses, what they do in the streets. But the truth is, it's the behavior, not the name that defines fascism, socialism, Marxism, whatever you want to call them, isms. Look back at history in the 1920s and 30s, Mussolini's black shirts in Italy, Hitler's brown shirts in Germany. They did not argue ideas. They smashed rallies, beat opponents, used mob violence to scare people into silence. They called it, they said it was necessary for defense, for protecting the nation. But, in reality, it was about power, and fear and violence was the weapon. Now fast forward to today in America, we see the mobs dressed in black, wearing face masks or diapers, whatever you want to call them, and they call themselves anti-fascist. Well, Antifa. What do they actually do? Well, they beat people in the streets for wearing the wrong hat. They show up at rallies, not to debate, but to shut them down. They try to intimidate, they vandalize everything, and they call it justice. That is not anti-fascism. That is fascism. That's what it is. That's fascism, people. Then there's Charlie Kirk's assassination. He was speaking in front of a large crowd, even, when some dumbass fascist shot him in the neck, assassinated him. The suspect targeted him for his political views. There was debate going on. They had expressions going all over the place. They wanted to silence him by violence. That is not free speech. This is enforcement through fear. That's fascism. And at the same time, we've noticed unclassified documents showing the Biden administration had the FBI, running a probe called was it Arctic Frost? Nearly 100 conservative organizations and individuals were being investigated, including Turning Point USA. But of course, the critics call it, the weaponization of government. But they're saying it's like a standard oversight. That's what we need to be doing. Whatever you try to say what the justification is, the fact remains that, federal power was turned on political opponents. That's not anti-fascism, people. So history tells us what kind of government does this. It's authoritarian regimes. That's what the Biden administration was. That's what the Obama administration was. They used police and intelligence services to harass rivals. Fascist regimes went further, blending government authority with violence to eliminate opponents, oppositions. Modern hybrid states like Turkey, Venezuela, they keep elections, but use state agencies to weaken the rivals. What do you think the Biden administration, Obama administration was doing? The pattern is the same. When government investigates and pressures opponents as a class, when mobs are allowed to attack, other people in the streets, the results is fear. Free nations are built on open debate and equal law. Once that is replaced with force and law is applied as a weapon, the line into authoritarianism has already been crossed. So again, Trump didn't start this. He's trying to end it. The core of fascism is simple. Replace persuasion with force, replace free speech with fear. Once you justify violence as a political tool, you have already crossed the line. And we saw it in 2020. And we saw it even before during Obama days. It does not matter, if it's the Nazis in 33 or the masked Antifa mobs in 2025 or a sniper assassinating someone for their ideas. If you're using violence to silence people, you're not defending freedom. You are destroying it. America was built on debate, on free speech, on the idea that even the people you disagree with have a right to speak. So the second we trade that for fists, fire mobs, for silence, we stop being a free nation. Fascism is not just a word from history books. It's a set of tactics. And if we don't call it out, no matter who is doing it or what they claim to stand for, it grows. And we saw it grow. So this is why I'm speaking out. I'm trying to educate people because our own education system has failed us. So instead of teaching history, critical thought, it has, pushed brainwashing that dulls the ability to think for yourself. You know, this is why so many in the so-called Antifa truly believe they are anti-fascist, when in reality their actions make them the fascists, the Nazis, you know, the Marxist socialism they claim to oppose. So they, you know, they have been taught to repeat slogans, not see the truth. You know, I ain't got much. I hope you guys can share this thing, spread this to these freaking people, hopefully help them wake up, but never forget, freedom dies when fear takes its place.